Hi, everyone. Dr. Tim here for another Dr. Tim's Aquatics podcast. And we're doing our questions and answers. If you have any questions about fish, reptiles, freshwater, saltwater, aquariums, that we're here to answer them, you can chat us up on social media or email those to info@drtimsaquatics.com and we will get to them. We'd love to have questions. We're also doing the first the Reptile Super Show in Pomona in a few weeks. So there's lots of shows, reptile shows, aquatic shows, Reefapalooza, Aquashella that we'll be attending. So please come out and talk to us. All right. First question is, I'm planning to do a fishless cycle on a new tank that only contains substrate and hardscape with a running biofilter. I'm planning on using one and only and keeping the temperature and pH relatively high. Once cycled and stocked, I intend to run cooler with a lower pH and KH. Do I need to be concerned about that water parameter transition with respect to the nitrifying bacteria? Do they need to be acclimated to the change, or can I do it all at once with a complete water change? Thanks. Well, there's three things here. We got temperature, and then we got pH, and we got KH. So, reducing temperature, I recommend you never drop more than about 5 or 7 degrees Fahrenheit, which is roughly 3 to 4 degrees Celsius per day. But it all depends on where you're going. If you're going from 84 to 74, you're fine. If you're going from 74 to 60, no, that's too big of a drop. Okay. And what happens if you're doing a cold water tank anywhere down to about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius, the bacterial species change. There's a great paper by he's a professor now in Florida, and he looked at actually public aquariums and showed that below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius, it was more of archaea oxidizing ammonia oxidizers rather than bacterial AOBs. Ammonia oxidizing bacteria dominated in the warm temperatures. Ammonia oxidizing archaea dominated below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius. So the temperature is most important, and it all depends upon where you're going. But in most tropical temperatures, say between 60 Fahrenheit and 84, no more than a drop of anywhere from 5 to 7 per day. Secondly is the KH. So this is the water, KH. This is the carbonate, the buffering. This is the water buffering. Well, you need to have some buffer, but the issue is that this person also wants to lower the pH, but they don't tell us how much. So if you have water with a lot of buffer, like out here in Southern California, the alkalinity, KH, same thing, is quite high. In order to drop the pH, you've got to consume all that alkalinity or lower it drastically. So the kind of pH and alkalinity kind of go hand in hand, but not necessarily. All these exceptions to the rule. So what I would say is down until about, as you lower alkalinity and pH, you should do that slowly. No more than 1 pH unit at a time. So it's hard to say because I don't know where your water's starting, where you want to go. But it's never good to do things super fast in an aquarium. So I would start with, 25, 30% water changes, assuming you're then going to top up with RODI water, something like that has no alkalinity. You're going to lower your alkalinity first, and then you're going to try to get to your target pH, which you don't mention. I'm not sure how you're going to do that, but slower is always better. And just realize that once you get to a pH of about 6.5, you're going to have some ammonia show up. Well, you give the bacteria time, but what you're doing is the right way. What you want to do is build a huge population of bacteria, and then as you lower the pH, each individual bacterium is going to work slower, but you're going to have so many of them that they're going to be able to take care of the ammonia. And anytime ammonia or nitrite shows up, halt, stay at that level for a while until it disappears. That's where the bacteria basically acclimating. At below 6, if you get into 5, you're going to have probably some issues. It just takes time. There's no doubt about it. I would love to know how you did this and what you ended up doing and how you progressed. Next question. In a fishless cycle, what marbles or types of marbles should be used for the quarantine setup? Well, it doesn't. Glass marbles are the best. I don't think it really matters. To tell you the truth, I've never really paid attention that much to it. I just like the marbles are glass. Glass has a charge to it. The bacteria like that. They're big, so they're easy to clean. It's just some surface. So I don't know that it matters. Haven't found that it does, but haven't really looked the difference in what the marbles are made of. Sorry about that. All right. Next, I got a bottle of freshwater refresh in air several months ago, and I was wondering if there would be an issue using it in salt water. And the answer is no. What we have found is that the freshwater products will work. I mean, they're better than nothing in salt water, and they'll do okay. They won't work as fast. So either increase the dosage amount or just realize it's going to take a little longer, but it's definitely better than nothing. The saltwater version, especially with the nitrifiers, that works all the way down into freshwater. I showed this years ago in a paper I published. A recent paper from a German lab showed the same thing. The saltwater bacteria have a very wide range of salinity tolerance. The freshwater bacteria, pretty much a narrow range. So if you got to choose one, always choose the saltwater bacteria. I have a question. When placing the gel in a tank, do I leave the skimmer on 24/7 or turn the skimmer off for 4 hours to let the bacteria populate? Well, the answer is you can leave the skimmer running. I mean, we designed the gel because we realized that when I tell people to turn the skimmer off for 4 or 5 hours, they freak out. A lot of people freak out, not everybody. And people don't want to change. They've got their system, they've got their setup, they don't want to monkey with it. So the gel is there to continuously add the bacteria that are being unintentionally removed by the skimmer, by the roller filters, by all these different devices that we have. Is it better to turn all that off once in a while and let the bacteria from the gel, come out and reproduce? Yes, definitely. When you first do that, you should be there because if you've got a lot of nutrients and this is the first time you've used the gel, the waste away liquid or gel, they can bloom. They can grow fast, double every 20 minutes. You can tell that by the hazy water. Kind of take a picture through the tank long ways maybe. But yes, for best operation, you should turn all that stuff off for a little while. But I think you should turn that stuff off, most definitely the skimmer, every day for a few hours. There's no reason to run the skimmer 24/7. You'll have a much healthier tank, much more colorful corals. Everything will just look better if you let the bacteria in the water populate by turning that skimmer off. Next question. Dear Sir, Madam, I am interested in the topic of ammonia-moving bacteria. Can your bacteria be used to inoculate the filter meter for pressure filters? So we'd like to know that. Well, yes, this is a pressure filter. Most aquariums aren't really pressure filters. That's where the water flows through it. And this is the reason I say be careful about using some filter media, because water is going to take the path of least resistance. So if you've got this nice engineered block, it's all fancy, it's got tons of this filter area, well, it's going to develop a slime. That's just what happens. We know this, folks. Come on. Everything in an aquarium develops a slime, a bacterial biocoat, a biofilm. Well, the water's going to take the path of least resistance, so it's going to go around it, over it, whatever. A pressurized filter, basically, it's a sealed canister, and the water is forced, either blown through it or more commonly sucked through the media. It can't go around it. Well, that can still clog. But for the nitrifiers, yes, some people think that if you have the flow rate too high, the nitrifiers can't form, can't get develop their biomass, their biofilm, and can't work. And yeah, that's true, but those are at extremely high flow rates. For most flow rates, public aquariums, etc., you're fine. Excuse me. You're fine. The bacteria will develop in a pressurized filter. The problem is going to be that a pressurized filter, unless you have really good mechanical filtration upstream, and it's going to clog. Whatever media you're using is going to clog, and the bacteria, the water is going to channel. It's going to find that path of least resistance. So you have to have backwashing capabilities to get rid of all the organic material that clogs over the filter. Because you have the filter, the bacteria, nitrifying bacteria, colonize that filter, grow their biofilm, but then the filter is also acting as a mechanical filter. That biofilm is now being covered up by dirt and grunge and all sorts of detritus. Well, on that, heterotrophic bacteria grow. They're going to be taking the oxygen out. So you've got oxygenated heterotrophic bacteria, anaerobic heterotrophic bacteria, then the nitrifiers, which aren't getting any oxygen. And if they don't have any oxygen, they can't do the biochemical conversion of ammonia or nitrite. So you got to keep your biofilter clean. That was the great thing about the BioWheel that we developed at Marineland. And in theory, trickle filters and upwelling trickle filters, because they keep the biomass, the biofilter, the area where the nitrifiers, they keep it clean. They don't get all these layers that take all the oxygen away. Okay. Next question. Hi. I use Waste Away 48 after water changes. I don't know what that is. That 48 hours? I use Waste Away 48 after water changes. Can I dose Nopox at the same time? Also, I know you recommend turning the skimmer off for 12 hours. Can I leave it on when dosing Waste Away? Okay, so I do not recommend adding Nopox or any other type of fuel when you're adding Waste Away. That's like pouring lighter fluid on a lit barbecue. Huge potential for a mess. Why? Because the Nopox is going to fuel the growth of the bacteria in the Waste Away. And if they go out of control, just grow crazily fast, they're going to suck all the oxygen out of the tank, and it's just going to be problem after problem after problem. So I don't recommend that. You can do it. If you're going to do it, you're on your own. I would be very careful, and I have no recommendations about that. And then I don't recommend the skimmer off for 12 hours, I don't think. It's more like 2 to 4 hours. I don't remember saying 12. But can you leave it on when dosing Waste Away? Yes. The problem is, of course, that a certain portion of the bacteria that you dose with the Waste Away, the skimmer is going to remove. It's not, so the bacteria are not going to have time to do their job. But can you do it? Yes. But you're reducing the efficiency of what you're trying to accomplish by adding the Waste Away. Next question. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me at the Aquashella show in Daytona Beach. I always like talking to people at the shows, so I'm there. I had the pretty purple growth. I purchased the laterite, the Catappa leaves, and sand. Okay, this one I remember. He's trying to, he wants a really cool planted tank. Is there a proper ratio to mix these in? So if you want to grow plants, plants need iron. This is an old school way of growing it. There are some products out there that still use laterite. You can get laterite. Laterite is basically a soil or material that has a lot of iron in it. and it's very powdery sometimes, and it can make your tank a mess. So what I recommend is that you put down a layer, small layer of sand, just quarter inch, half inch. Then you put the laterite, and then you bury that with more sand because it keeps it sealed in there. And then when you're planning, when you fill the tank, be careful. Put a plate on the top of the soil substrate. Have the water hit that. That way, it's not digging a hole into the substrate and releasing all that laterite because it makes a mess. What's the proper ratio? I would do about a quarter inch to a half inch layer of the laterite, and then cover that with an inch or two of sand. And then when you plant, get the roots down in there, you'll have gorgeous plants, assuming you have good water quality and the lighting. But you have to have stuff in the soil if you really want to grow nice plants. That's my opinion. Next question. Use your product for years. Love it. Question. I'm on day 7. My ammonia on day 2 was 1.91, day 4, 2.5, day 7, 2.5. Nitrite just showing up at 0.1. pH holding at 8.2 to 8.3. I have approximately 100 gallons of salt water and have followed your directions. Just checking what you thought of my progress. Well, first off, 1.9 to 2.5 test kits. I get these measurements, people writing me and saying, my nitrite is 0.0015. You're not measuring nitrite down to that level. Come on, folks. These are indicators. And yes, I know that you can have an electronic meter. If you're doing standards and you got controls and super analytical, maybe you can get down to 3 or 4 decimal points. But basically, your ammonia, your nitrite in that case, is 0. So here, what we don't know, though, is how many times the person has added ammonia. Also, saltwater tanks, so they could be using live sand. Live sand has a lot of organics. The organics decay, and those can be added ammonia. So it's kind of hard to tell. My question would be, have you added ammonia once or twice? Usually by 7 days, we've recommended that you've added the ammonia at least twice. So this tank is making progress. I don't have enough data. So that brings up the point. If time is crucial for everybody. If you're going to write in, which we hope you do, and you're going to ask this type of question, what I need to know is in that 7 days, I've dosed ammonia once, I've dosed ammonia twice, followed the letter to the T. That doesn't tell me anything, guys. I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but I don't know how many times you've added ammonia, which is critical because then I can do the calculation. And then just, did you add 4 drops? Because the internet's out there saying, the whole calculation's wrong, only add 1 drop. So I need to know how many times you've added ammonia and how much ammonia you've added. Then I can answer questions like this a lot better. All right. Next question. Hello. I'm doing a fishless cycle with a bunch of ceramic media for a tank I'll be setting up in 3 months. Once it's cycled, what's the best way to keep this media to continue to be mature before setting the tank up? Well, the best way is to have lots of water flow. So if you're going to do that, what I would recommend is you put your pump filter, something on the bottom. It can be a trash can or some type of container that holds water, but at the bottom. And then some type of false bottom egg crate or something. You can then, if you're doing the small media, you could do window screen and then the media on top of that. And what you're trying to do is push the water up, and you want the water to circulate. Water circulation through the media, over the media, is the most important thing you can do. You can get fancy if you want, and put a pump on the outside of the the container and draw the water through the media. So you got to have good water flow through the media. Then the next thing is adding the ammonia. So I would say, add the ammonia every 3 or 4 days. You don't have to add it every day. That's not required, but you need to add it every, 3 or 4 days. I would add at least to 0.5 milligrams per liter, that's 1 drop. So 4 drops per gallon equals 2 milligrams per liter. 1 drop is 0.5, something like that. And then watch your alkalinity and your pH, because as you're adding the ammonia and the bacteria doing their thing, they're consuming the alkalinity. The pH is going to drop. When the pH gets too low, the bacteria don't work as fast. So be prepared to do water changes. And it's really as simple as that. Keep it in the dark. No use growing algae or anything like that. Don't have to put it in the light. And then when you do move it, just be careful, because some people they worry that they're going to lose all the bacteria. But the nitrifying bacteria grow in these biofilms, so they're pretty strong. And you don't just move them carefully, but you don't have to pre-rinse. You don't have to be super, super delicate when you move them from that, say trash can where you've been growing them to the tank. And in fact, all the stuff at the bottom is just going to be detritus, because you are growing nitrifiers, and that means you're growing heterotrophs, and you want to slough those off. So I'd even take some of the nitrifiers in your hand and kind of rinse them gently in the water just to flush all the loose organic material out, because as I talked about in a couple questions previously, you don't want all that organic material. That's covering up the nitrifiers. The nitrifiers are on a biofilm. They're stuck to the ceramic. So you can agitate it a little bit. I'm not talking getting a blender and turning it all up, but you can rinse it, just with your hands and mix it up and get all that organic material off. The nitrifiers will still be stuck on there, and you'll be fine. All right, next. Quick question. I look through the product line and feel like EcoBalance is a good fit for my needs. I cleaned it too aggressively and messed up the biobalance of the sand bed. Dinos are showing up. I've been able to knock back their footprint and feel like the healing can be finished with some probiotics. My question is compatibility with the waste away gel that I want to add to my tank. Any special instructions? Should I hold off on the gel? Well, dinos showing up, you got to get your nutrients in balance. Most likely you've got super low nitrate and phosphate, so get those. Nitrate between 5 and 10, phosphate about 0.03 to 0.05. And then you can definitely add the EcoBalance, and it's not going to interfere with the waste away. Just don't add any organics, any fuels. Just you add the EcoBalance, keep the waste away gel going, and you should be fine. There shouldn't be any interference there. Cleaning aggressively, I'm assuming your nutrient levels are super low, which is why you've got the dinos. But it should be fine. Next question. Hello. I have an 800-gallon West Coast system. I keep it 50 degrees Fahrenheit. 50. The jellies have gotten pretty large and therefore require more food. I have been having very cloudy water lately that I need to address. The biofiltration biotower has been recently cleaned of detritus, not sterilized, and increased with fluidized sand filter. I tried Clear Up with no effect. Will adding one and only bacteria work to eliminate cloudiness in the 50 Fahrenheit, that's 10 degrees Celsius, water? Okay, so there's two things going here. As I mentioned earlier, 50 degrees, 10 degrees Celsius is that transition between ammonia oxidizing bacteria and ammonia oxidizing archaea. Cloudiness, I think that's because there's lots of organics in the water column by cleaning, and so you're growing heterotrophs. We have a product called Clear Up, and it's a flocculant, but it only works on inert, small, inorganic, more inert particles. If you have a bloom, it works. Okay, I want to clear that up. It works on organics, but it doesn't work on bacteria. If you have a bacterial bloom, Clear Up is not the product. If you Clear up is if you have a lot of detritus, which is organic, or just cloudiness because you've stirred up the sand bed and you've got these microparticles. A flocculant acts to attract those particles together to make them a bigger particle, which then your mechanical filter can remove. But that doesn't work on bacteria. This is a bacterial bloom, and basically you've got to fight the bacterial bloom with bacteria. In this case, the waste away would be a much better choice than the clear up. And I'm not sure one and only, because he's asking if one and only nitrifying bacteria will eliminate cloudiness. And the answer is probably not. Now, he didn't mention, but I'd want to know, do you have ammonia? Do you have nitrite? Because if you clean the tank up and released a lot of organics, that organic material is mineralized into ammonia. That's what the heterotrophs are doing. They're breaking down that organic material or mineralizing it and producing ammonia. So do you have an ammonia spike? Then the one and only would work. But just for bacterial cloudiness, I would say go with the waste away bacteria. Next, can you advise the shelf life of Dr. Tim's ammonia chloride in an unopened and opened bottle, please? Well, the shelf life is pretty much years in an unopened bottle, as long as it doesn't, if it isn't green or colored, or there's not some gunk growing in it, a film, it's not, it's fine. Now, it's opened. What can happen over time is that the water can evaporate, and that will concentrate the ammonium chloride. But again, we use ammonium chloride, which is a low pH, which versus like ammonium hydroxide. That's why you can't smell ammonia in our ammonium chloride, or it's got a very minor smell. But if you have ammonia cleaners, that's usually ammonium hydroxide. The pH is up very high, which means the total ammonia is in the form of the ammonia gas, which is what you smell. And that can definitely evaporate over time faster than the water. And so the concentration will decrease in that solution if you don't keep it sealed. There's other reasons, but we use ammonium chloride, and it would be years, and I'm talking 4, 5, 6 years. It'd have to be warm, warmer water, warmer solution to really make a big difference. I hope that helps. I have a strange question. Okay. In our country, there's a well-known famous fish shop. The shop owner always tells us he does the water change on a monthly basis, not weekly. His tanks are stable and wonderful. Among his tanks is a planted tank injected with CO2, carbon dioxide, that contains discus. What makes me curious to ask is that all international websites and influencers strongly recommend changing the water on a weekly basis. What's the secret behind this? So there is no one water change regime fits all. Okay? The owner of this fish shop probably been doing it for a long time. It's a fish shop, so there's probably a lot of fish, a lot more fish per, gallon or liter. We're the only ones that use gallons, so we're going to assume it's liters. But the density of fish is probably a lot higher in that fish shop tank, those fish shop tanks, than they're going to be in your tanks. So he's going to have to do, he does it on a monthly basis. Well, he's got a routine that works for him, but he keeps it up. He never misses. There's no rule that says you have to do a water change weekly or monthly. It depends upon how much you feed and what size tank and how much fish. The water change is to, one, Pretty much you incorporate it with a siphon clean to get rid of organics in the system. Also, as I've mentioned a couple times in this podcast, as you feed more, you're producing more ammonia. More ammonia means the bacteria are converting it. When the bacteria convert ammonia, they release an acid that consumes the alkalinity. When the alkalinity is consumed, then the pH drops. When the pH drops too low, then the bacteria slow or stop working. Well, that's all related to the amount of the amount of food you're feeding. So as long as you've got a balance, and thinking about pet stores, fish shops don't feed their fish a lot because it makes more maintenance. It does make more work. I'd say that the average fish is much better fed in a home aquarium than in a shop aquarium. So the answer is there is no secret. It's learning for your setup what's best. If you have a small tank and you insist on keeping a lot of fish, or you insist on keeping big fish, like a lot of people keep goldfish in just 10 gallons of water. Goldfish eat a lot. They produce a lot of waste. That waste is broken down into ammonia by bacteria. Once again, then the nitrifiers get to work, so the pH is dropping. So, and maybe you have low alkalinity water, like up in the Pacific Northwest. All things being equal, people in the Pacific Northwest would have to do a lot more frequent water changes than people in Southern California because we have high alkalinity, high pH water, where in the Pacific Northwest, they have low alkalinity, low pH water. And when you're thinking about the nitrifiers aren't going to work that well. So the secret is knowing your system, knowing your water, and every tank, every setup, it's different. You just have to do some measurements, do some pH and alkalinity measurements, look at the health of the fish, and then you'll figure out, for my regime, for my tank, for my setup, maybe every 2 weeks a 25% water change is good. There isn't a concrete rule. Usually water changes are good. I did mention another time, there are exceptions, like if you've got rummy nose tetras, neon tetras, cardinal tetras. My experience has been frequent small water changes, because that's the other thing. We don't know how much this shop owner is changing. What's the percentage? Maybe he's doing 50% a month, which to me is pretty extreme. And especially as mentioning with the tetras, I wouldn't do more than 10% every couple of weeks or every month. Just had bad experience with big water change and the fish didn't adapt. And it happened a couple of times, so need to be careful with that. Okay. Next, is it okay to leave the white stuff that's growing on the side of the waste away gel, or do I take it off? So that white stuff is a fuzzy, cloudy type thing. That's a bacterial biofilm. It is okay to leave it. It'll break off, and if you have corals, they'll consume that. It's full of all sorts of nutritious microorganisms, not just bacteria. It's kind of like marine snow, basically. Don't like it? You can slowly remove the gel, wipe that off with a tissue, and put the gel back. It's up to you, but it's very nutritious for the animals that are in your tank. Next, unable to find out whether to refrigerate or not after opening freshwater EcoBalance. Don't need to refrigerate. The only product that really needs refrigeration is the one and only if you're going to save it for a long, long time. But that will slow the bacteria down. So, if you're going to use it in a month, don't refrigerate it. If it's going to be 2 or 3 months, then you could refrigerate it, never freeze it. Freezing it, huge potential of killing all the bacteria. But EcoBalance, Waste Away, Refresh, no reason to refrigerate those. And then how do you know they've gone bad? Your nose will tell you. It will stink like just rotten eggs if they go bad. Okay, another EcoBalance question. When using EcoBalance, do I need to remove chemical filters such as Purigen and Nitrosorb? No. EcoBalance is a bacteria. And these types of things are not going to affect or remove the bacteria. I would caution though, what are you trying to do here? Uh, it's impossible with this question to know what they're trying to do, but you kind of want to resist turning your aquarium into a chemical and even a biological soup by adding just everything, everything, everything. Water changes, assuming your water is good and you've dechlorinated it, um, and maybe one bacterial product like our waste away, or once in a while some EcoBalance, maybe once a month, a little bit of refresh if you've got algae and stuff growing on the tank. But resist adding, on a weekly basis, just everything, just throwing all that stuff in there. Okay. Um, and especially if your tank is young, tanks go through an acclimation period. How your tank is at 1 month, 3 months, 6 months is very different, especially a saltwater tank. Really takes about a year to get going, and then it what I call pops. Other people use the same term. The water's just sparkling clean. The fish are eating. It just looks really, really good. But it takes time. You have to have patience, patience, and patience. Next question. Hi there. I'm having a persistent ammonia spike in my betta tank. It's 40 liters. I'm in Australia, and it has been established for months, but it got an ammonia spike a few weeks ago, and I can't seem to get rid of it. It has minimal nitrates, less than 5 ppm, zero nitrites. So I'm assuming the nitrogen cycle has crashed for some reason. I got an ammonia spike to 0.5. I'm wondering if adding one and only would help and treat it like a new tank, doing 50% water change every second day with no success. Unfortunately, you know, need to go back and forth with this person, but I've had something like this in the past. And what it turned out was you're doing water changes, every second day with no success. What water are you using? A lot of people, again, with good intentions, go and they get RO or DY water from the grocery store. Or they get, super pure water. Pure water. By pure water, I mean water with no alkalinity, no minerals. That's terrible water for an aquarium. If you're just going to use it. If you're going to add salt to it, that's fine. But a lot of people with freshwater aquariums, especially small betta tanks, will go and they'll just get a small bottled water and they'll get pure water. What's better than pure water? Well, pure water with no minerals, no alkalinity, no buffering, nothing is terrible for fish. So you want to get probably spring water. You want to look at it and see, does it have a pH around 7.5 to 8? Does it at least have some calcium, some magnesium, some hardness, some alkalinity? And that's what you want to change your water, use to change your water. I would say, based on what I read, that's all I have right here, is that this person is using pure water. The pH is crashed because they mention what ammonia nitrite and nitrate are, but they don't mention pH. And I bet you the pH is low, and that means the bacteria aren't working, and that's the root of all evil. So the moral here is be careful of what you change your water. Years ago, had a young lady that was a friend of one of the colleagues at work, and she was having tons and tons of problems. She's only like 14 or 15-year-old, had her first aquarium, and every fish saltwater fish she put in it died. So I had to bring a water sample. And she came in with her mom and a colleague, and we did this, and the salinity was off the roof. And I asked, when you make up for evaporation, what do you use? Well, I use sea salt, seawater. No. The evaporation in a saltwater aquarium, only pure water is evaporated. The salt's getting concentrated. So if you're topping up with salt water to make up for the evaporation in a saltwater tank, all you're doing is increasing the salinity, and it gets to a point where it's like the Salton Sea or Mono Lake, super, 2, 3 times the concentration of salt versus normal seawater, and nothing can live in that except these damn flies and brine shrimp. So you have to know what your makeup water is. Getting back to this person, I would say that their makeup water is pure water, and that's the problem. Need to switch to a spring water that has decent alkalinity and hardness, and all these problems will go away. Next question. Hi there. I have town water. My goldfish tank is 200 liters, has not had a problem, and the cycle is stable. The pH is a little weird. When I test with the master kit, just testing with the standard reagent, you get a very brown, very yellow color. So I think that means 6 or less. Does pH influence ammonia? I thought we used to have high ammonia a few years ago, but have they switched water supplies? I have also put one of the sponge filters from my goldfish tank in my betta tank, and that has not helped. The betta is resting a lot, so that is not good. It's quite heavily planted, heated to 27 degrees Celsius, which is, that's about 85. 80, yeah. Not sure about water hardness. I would say it's not especially hard, though. Okay, so there's a couple of things here. Doesn't say how often this person's changing water, but the pH used to be high and now it's low. Yes, because as I've probably mentioned 6 or 7 times in this podcast, as a tank ages and you're nitrifying, you're consuming the alkalinity, which means the pH is dropping. So unless you're adding some type of buffer or doing water changes with the right water that has alkalinity and high pH, the pH is going to bottom out and it's going to be between 5 and 6. And then you're going to have ammonia problems. And, it's the old tank syndrome. And it's basically got lots of organics. More importantly, there's no buffering. And so now the pH is super low and the nitrifiers are not working. So the fix for that is water changes. Okay? Regular water changes with the right water, which it can be tap water, just dechlorinate it with a simple dechloring agent like our First Defense. But one, you have to do regular water changes, and two, you have to do regular water changes with the right type of water. I think water changes was the moral of this podcast today. Just turned out that way. But you got to make sure that your water that you're using, the new water you're using, is going to increase the important parameters like, KH or alkalinity. You want buffered water, so the pH is 7.5 to 8 in most cases. I'm talking fresh water. And then your nitrifiers are in the sweet zone, and they'll work better and keep the ammonia and nitrate down. And the simplest way to do that, partial water changes combined with a gravel vac, so you're getting out the organic materials that are clogging your biological filter, reducing the organics that turn the water yellow, they add smell, they just kind of make the tank stink. That's the way to do it. You'll reduce your algae, because algae love polluted water, and everything else will just look so much better. You've got to do the maintenance. Some people say, well, I've got a huge aquarium, that's a lot of work. Well, you're the one that chose the huge aquarium. But even a big aquarium, even public aquariums do water changes. They don't have to do them as often as you do. But smaller tanks, how often to do water change? That was a question. How much are you feeding? How many fish you have? The more fish, the more food, the more often, and the larger water change you're going to have to do. Everything else is being equal. Okay, so that's the moral of this podcast. Maintenance. Tanks are not maintenance free. Don't believe this, by some magic thing. It always starts with magic this or magic that, that's going to eliminate water changes. Um, Come on, care for your animals. You need to do water changes. It's not that hard. Um, so please take care of your animals. So this has been Dr. Tim with Dr. Tim's Aquatics Question and Answer podcast. As always, contact us on social media or at info@drtimsaquatics. Dr. Tim's Aquatics. We like talking to people. Come out to the shows. You can check our calendar on our website and come out and say hi. We greatly appreciate seeing you and your support. Thank you very much, and good fish keeping.